Yes, thank you.
Okay, so we are live on YouTube now. This is really exciting for our inaugural CS Leaders Chat discussion. Today we have some great leaders with us. Jonathan Zifkin, who is the VP of Global Client Success at Intellect, Holly Tiessen, who's the SVP of Customer Value now. You've had a number of roles at Exonify, and brand new to CS, we have Kate Hands, which we're really excited to have you join. And then on my team, we have, with Winning by Design, we have Elizabeth Italiano. We're here to just chat about the top issues that we are feeling right now. So I'd love to kick it off with what's going on these days. So, what are you feeling these days? Let's just start it easy. It's new times. It's, a new environment. What's going on? What's going on with you and your team? What's the biggest change you're seeing? John, you want to kick it off?
Sure. I think first and foremost, I'll say, so I'm the head of global customer success at Intellytics. And
sorry.
Yeah, no, it's all good. And Holly is the Intellects, which, by the way, is a common misunderstanding amongst the Toronto tech community bubble. But no, I'm happy to kick it off, and thanks for Julie for inviting me and having me here. Yeah, I mean, I think I probably speak for everybody when I'd say it's quite a mix of emotions, and it is all uncharted territory. I think every day that we wake up, there's new surprises and things and challenges that I think that we all need to deal with in a way that we haven't really been prepared for. None of us on this call, I don't think anybody's ever been in a position where they've understand the characteristics of a pandemic and what to do with it. So it's scary, but at the same time, I think I go through each day feeling very reassured that my colleagues and my counterparts and everybody on this call are going through the same thing that I'm going through. So I'm not alone. I think that's a big theme for a lot of people to be able to get through this successfully, is to know that they're not alone, and just to reach out to each other and go from there. So just to elaborate a little further, I mean, some people I think are in fortunate positions to be financially capable to continue to carry themselves through the pandemic, and others not so much. We are a technology provider in the live event space, and live events were the first, major block that toppled over when the pandemic really started. And so our revenues went from up here all the way down to nothing in very short order. And so we had to very quickly, in a matter of 48 hours, figure out a plan on how we're going to bridge the gap between, what used to be very good times and what will be good times again. And that's, again, exciting, involuntarily exciting, and certainly a challenge that we're all worth taking. But we had to lay off a lot of people. And so we pivoted very quickly to use our expertise in the live event industry, where we've dealt with security, technology, and very vulnerable and at-risk settings. So some of the biggest music festivals, biggest fan conferences like Coachella's and Comic-Cons of the world. And what we know really well, and what I know really well, so we said, let's pivot. And we're lucky enough that our company is big enough and small enough, depends on how you look at it, to be able to just quickly switch gears and build something very new off of our technology stack to launch very quickly. And so we're building get the economy started again. And for the essential services piece, really keep them compliant and safe. So it's a screening application that people are using today to record for contact tracing and to have records and logs of people who are coming into their operations. And as we begin to open more and more, those protocols are going to become more and more strict if we want to open the economy, and our application is going to help with that. So exciting, meaningful, but what tomorrow holds.
All of us here right now is you're not alone. And you said that, and I was like, I don't know how you feel, Holly and Kate, but you kind of feel a little bit alone, because we are, right? We're working from home, from a little island. Yes, we have our families around us, but you don't get that feeling of walking into the office and meeting with your peers and just being like, oh, like this is what's going on. So but we're all in this, right? No one's ever really gone through a pandemic like this before. And so before we get to, some of the amazing stuff you also talked about, John, pivoting, and that's like, that's how you're going to be succcul. I'd love to jump in on that sort of you're not alone feeling.
Can I jump in there actually? Because hi everyone. I'm Kate. I'm the VP of Customer Success at a tech company called Tealbook. And actually, I'm new to customer success. I've always sat on the other side of the table in the procurement space. Tealbook essentially it's a platform that uses AI technology to connect buyers and sellers. Tealbook during the shutdown. So being onboarded, receiving your laptop by a courier and then starting that engagement with both the team and customers has been a new experience for me. But I think there's a real human element. What I'm noticing when I'm connecting with customers is due to that shared experience, it's almost like you've broken down barriers initially just by having that shared experience that we're all going through. And there's a lot more of not an informality, but there's a lot more of a relaxed vibe when having conversations with each of my clients, because there's a real human feel to it all. And I think that's actually helping me in this new role build those relationships with customers, and also being able to understand what they're going through, having been on, wearing their shoes previously. So I'm thoroughly enjoying being in the customer success space, and it's just great being able to empathize with your customers.
Yeah, it's such an interesting, moment to join a company and have to meet all of your new customers under these circumstances, right? Like, hi, but you're right. You do get, look at all of us. I mean, I have a whiteboard behind me, but like, I get to see people's living rooms, and it's kind of cool. We get to see. I watch a lot of Trevor Noah, and it's like I get to see what his house looks like. He's
amazing. Yeah, I'm from South Africa, so I love Trevor.
Yeah, he's doing a great job. Yeah. Holly, how about you?
Yeah, so I guess picking up on that theme of empathy, we're certainly seeing a lot more empathy, whether it's within our organizations. I certainly see that at Exonify, and we're definitely live every day. We're living the values of having very tight culture, but we've taken it to a new level in the last few weeks, as well as a lot more visible empathy on a one-to-one and one-to-many basis out in the market, our customers and prospects. So we are getting to see more and different sides of people, which is awesome. I've also seen lots of creativity within the team and with customers, and I think John's example is awesome, right? Like, think of that pivot and the creative thinking that went with, we're doing this and now we're doing this. So it's great to see that in people, and for them to come up with new and different options to work through things, as well as tying a third point of people just rolling with it. Where in the past they might have stood their ground more, stakes in the ground, or just had different reactions. I find that now they're which I think is pretty different in the times that we're living in.
You have to be creative in how you're managing your day to day.
Yeah,
it's changed so much, and we're used to doing lots of our calls and meetings remotely. But we are an in-person meeting culture as well, right? So we'll go out and we'll have dinners, we'll meet our customers live and distributed. And so keeping that culture alive, Holly, I'd love to come back to you on something you just said is, you said that at Exonify, you have this really tight culture, and can you talk about some specific things that you're doing that has helped the culture and the empathy across your organization?
Yeah, sure. So at Exonify, we're about 200 people. For the most part, that group is in the Kitchener-Waterloo area, so just outside of Toronto, and everybody pretty much loves coming into the office. And I say that like for real. Like,
you have a crazy commute normally, and
that's a separate conversation. But but everybody loves being in the office, and they're missing being in the office and in person. And I know that's not everybody's thing. Other teams work remotely and they're used to that, but it's just been a big shift. And so the fun things that are happening go from just more all company meetings held by our CEO company, because Carol does Ask Me Anything, AMA time, and she does get anything. But that just, like, people are real. We've got groups on the CS team who actually play euchre online together once or twice a week. They're actually spending more kind of just personal time than they ever did, and connecting in different ways, like that. We've had talent shows. So
remote talent shows.
Yep, exactly. And that's like
pretty funny.
Yeah, like there's some really talented people across the company, and they were sharing little bits of that before, but I think there's just a lot more sharing of who these individuals are outside of the office, which
I totally want to get to you, but I want to give you all a heads up. At some point, I'm going to be asking you if you had to perform a remote talent show, what would talent be? I'm going to give you a little time to think about it.
Okay.
So John,
thanks for the heads up.
Yeah, heads up is important here. John, sorry, I cut you off for a minute.
No, I just on Holly's point, I think in learning about people, I think on the opposite end of this, not to make it a bit more serious, but this is an opportunity to really understand people, but from the impact that this pandemic's having on them. It's so easy to separate the work environment with personal life, and everybody's going to be affected by this in one way or the other, some more than others. And so I think for our teams to be, high impact and delivering, and also just from a retention standpoint, right, working for companies and people that care about you. This is an opportunity to understand how they're doing, how they're affected by this. They may not be personally affected, but they know somebody who's affected, and that could affect them. And people are scared, ultimately, is what's going to happen. And so I think for us to continue having that great vibe, it's all well and dandy. We have talent shows, and we have a happy hour on Friday now where everybody's drinking at 4:00. And that, that's never happened, of course. And so it's nice to have a drink with somebody remotely, but this is an opportunity for us to band together, and part of doing that is just understanding how people are affected and being empathetic towards their specific case.
You're spot on about the serious part of it, because we can all get caught up in it. Oh yeah, we're doing these fun things, but when I think about what's going on, I think about our people and their mental health, and some of them are completely shut down and dealing with those challenges, and some of them are flat out, like the grocery stores, and their frontline staff are stretched to the max connection as well. So it's an interesting challenge, right, John?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'd love
I had
to
a question come through LinkedIn, and the question is, they're looking for everyone's perspective on executive outreach. So when you're looking at your customers and chatting with your customer base, what tips do you have for executives in reaching out to other executives and customers? John, we'll start with you.
Yeah. So are you talking about the context of having executives reach out over the top of what would be a traditional CSM team?
Yes.
Is that?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking from the question. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think more importantly, I don't think it's necessarily just about individual reach outs. Julie, I saw something in one of your videos just around understanding the market, but understanding your customers, what they're thinking. This is I mean, for us in particular in the live event space, as I mentioned, a lot of their livelihoods are wrapped up in one event that happens annually. And so you don't have that event, you lost potentially your entire sources of income. And the future of those events may not be around. So I think this is an opportunity for us to reach out to customers to let them know that we understand the impact. I do believe, firmly that we should have executive outreach. I think it's every company is different. So I think it's important for them to dissect whether or not they need to do it on an individual basis. But absolutely, I think top-down communication to take some of that pressure of, like, how is our relationship, right? Is it going to be very commercial, or is it going to be very relationship based, right? Because it's easy to that message for them. People are going to feel comfortable and they're going to stick around. So it's important.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. As you're answering that question, around executive outreach, is either, that, or also what are some other specific things you're doing right now to make your customers feel like you're there to support them. So Kate, I'd love to, you're having a ton of customer calls right now. Both introduce
its product offering. So we've done a bit of Tealbook by broadening the horizons on actually what's available. So that's one angle. And then obviously due to all this COVID-19, what we've got some brilliant use cases of companies using us to really identify supply disruptions. So looking at supply chain where there's potential disruptions and how they can mitigate the risk associated with that and be more agile. So it's really understanding what challenges they're facing, and we're doing a great webinar session where everyone's sharing their thoughts. And Steph is very relationship based, so we've got some great relationships with our customer base, and so it's all those factors combined mean that we're almost collaborating on what that might look like going forward from both a customer and a Tealbook perspective, and how we can make product enhancements to better meet their needs, but also fit within our vision going forward. So there've been a number of moving pieces, but great conversations that have come out of these recent events.
Thank you. And Holly, how about you?
Yeah, I would echo the great comments from Kate and John, and just layer in how we can be authentic in that outreach. So who is calling on who at a particular customer, and what's that conversation look like? And we can do that to a certain extent because we've got about 200 customers and we can get our arms around them. You have to be able to do that at scale, but you pick your places. And I hear empathy a lot, and I would just be authentic in whatever it is you're going to do, and do it, because that executive outreach is important.
Yeah, I love that. So, do it. Don't just talk about it. Actually think about it. It's interesting. I was just chatting with the whole executive team, and we did a bit of a workshop on, how to actually have these conversations, because, as a head of CS, this is sort of second nature. It's like, oh, how many customers do you talk to in a day? Between 10 and 20. This is very second nature to you. But maybe your CEO or maybe your head of engineering or whatnot, they're not as used to it. Even your head of sales is often used to talking, not necessarily talking to customers, a company. It's hard to pick up the phone and call customers. We recognize that, and giving them some tips and strategies on how to make the call customer centric, effective for them, empathy, but also driving value. That's important, and it might be a little bit less intimidating. And we often forget that executives can be intimidated.
Yeah, that's a good point, Julie. And one thing that I've chatted with a few of my former colleagues about when they've been reaching out to me asking for tips is, empathy goes a long way, but then, taking it to that next step. And then how do we go to strategy and execution? We take that empathy and we can drive action, kind of empathy with a bias towards action is the way that I've, started to look at it, to make sure that, yes, we're having a conversation. We understand that there's difficulty here, but now let's get rooted in conversations around what's changing.
Jump in there. I think a couple of things. There's the term tone deaf, which we've heard it probably 1,000 times in the last 3 weeks, and something that we went through. I think behaviorally speaking, whether it's sales or CS, a lot of the times it feels awkward, right? And a lot of people might not admit this. It feels awkward engaging with a customer without some sort of intent to sell them something or to upsell. Like, there's always motive behind it. And so this is an opportunity to just speak to them. Like, we're throwing all these words around empathy and conversation and strategy and execution. Like, this is a chance to just talk to them about what's happening without lobbing in the last sentence. And by the way, our technology, is the most important thing in the world. Or how can we grow with you? So, one of the things that I had said to one of our chief strategy officer was, let's start talking about what's happening and the use of our technology in the live event space in the future. And we stopped ourselves because we weren't selling anything, but we were definitely a little early on that message and talking to not be tone deaf and not put something in place that's like, that seems a little authentic. Like Holly's point, like, it's authentic, but there's tones of deafness there. Yeah. There's tones of deafness there. And I think that could really backfire. So I think just reserve that and make sure that you're really thinking through that message whenever that time comes.
Yeah, one thing, Holly, you mentioned you have a few different types of customers, right? If you had the same approach for your retail as you do for grocery, that would not work well. And so, grouping your clients into industry and vertical, and also like what's happening to them now, to understand what the most appropriate approach is something that I'm seeing allow you also to, in a way, scale that communication, right? Because you have a lot of customers and you do need to reach out to them. How do you effectively do the right research and preparation in order to have that real, that conversation with them that's personalized? So helping to categorize that and saying, look, if you're talking to people in the retail or the restaurant industry, here's sort of what they're going through right now, and here's a bit of that perspective. And to your point, John, like sometimes their strategy means you need to give them your product for free for the next 3 months, because the answer is going to be they either leave you or they stay with you for free. So either way, you're not getting paid. Let's make it a scenario where they are still your customer. Isn't booming. Kate, can I throw this over to you first?
Yeah, I mean, it's less relevant because we find we've got a solid growth pipeline now because of this has actually created a more awareness for us, and we're perfectly positioned to help companies. So if anything, we've got the opposite problem of, we've got a lot of people knocking on our door wanting to be a customer of ours, which is great. The challenge for me is we don't really have a customer success team set up at the moment. So I'm trying to set that up so that we can scale it and be able to keep up with that growth as it happens over the rest of the year. So yeah, less relevant, probably more relevant to the other two, but we'd like to hear their thoughts on that.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Customers who come in now, have a very different, like what they're dealing with now is going to be really different in 6 months or 12 months from now.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Adjustment.
And then you talked about client segmentation. It's so important, I think, to do that. And like you say, you can then tailor the way that you interact with those customers according to their needs and why they bought into that product.
Absolutely. Holly, how about you?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I think we're fairly fortunate so far that generally speaking, our customers are sticking with us. We're not seeing them want to leave. So the conversations are more around billing and how to handle the renewals. So they want to keep going with us. How can we do that together?
Right. And how about you, John?
Yeah, I think we're immune to that problem right now, just given that all live events are usually on an annual basis for 6 months. So we know, we know that it's going to be hard to see an event more than 10,000 people come back in 2020. I mean, that's the reality of it. There might be some exceptions in Florida or Texas. We'll see. I know that there's a real drive to open up the economy there, and they might be pushing towards that. So we might see it to run their event next year. And of course, if they are, then we should see a pretty high retention rate.
Yeah, make it really good. Okay, we're going to wrap it up because I promised to keep these chats short and sweet, but you're definitely all invited back. We're going to do these weekly at 1 p.m. Eastern time, short chats with CS leaders about relevant topics. To close it out, are you ready? I'm going to ask you, I already teed you up with one question. I'm going to ask you 2 questions though. If you were to do a live talent show in front of your whole company, what would your talent be? And the second thing is, what are you doing these days to keep you sane, to keep you calm, to keep you going? So I will go first because I believe that that's, if you're asking people to put themselves out, you got to go first. So my talent would be juggling, although I'm not very good. I have a couple of juggling skills and I can do that on camera. And what's keeping me going is once or twice a day. I'm actually up north right now. I've been up north for about four or 5 weeks. I have no idea of what concept of time anymore. And I go for these walks, usually through the forest. And I've been discovering it through my kids' eyes. So we'll jump over puddles, run because we feel like running as opposed to trying to, run a certain number of minutes, or walking across logs that have fallen down. So that's my saying right now. Holly, how about you?
Very sweet. Okay, so talent, I hate this question, just so you know. But if I was to do that in front of the company, it's give me some mixture of things and some duct tape, and I will build something crafty with it. That's cool. That's what I'll put out to you. And kind of similar, but not through my 17 and 15-year-old daughter's eyes. I go out for walks, and that's how I'm keeping my own sanity. Mm-hmm.
That sounds great too. Kate.
So I actually used to be a singer-songwriter back in London. So I would probably play them a song, although I haven't done it for many years. 4 times a week in our garage.
Nice.
It's just great to have a workout, get the blood pumping, and I find that definitely helps me cope.
Nice.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of social media about HIIT classes. I haven't tried one yet.
Yeah, I'm exercising more than I did previously.
John, how about you?
I would say that I'm a recreational guitar player, so I would probably pick up a guitar and play a nice little Grateful Dead song to everybody if I could.
Nice.
And as far as keeping sane, I think the general answer, I think if I can just get outside, I think you're cooped up. And so anytime I'm outside with my kids or on a bike ride or going for a walk, there's a new level of.
If you don't know what the sword dance is, Google Highland dancing and sword dance.
If only we could have a little demo now, that would be great.
But then we have to see what's like on the bottom, right? It's like the time when everyone looks nice on top and is wearing like pajamas on the bottom.
That should have been your person, or stand up.
Yeah, and the secret is not touching the sword when you dance. So you'd have to definitely see it here. Just having the live classes has been really great from a social perspective as well as a working out perspective. So those days that I join the live classes, I definitely get an extra boost.
Yeah, so it sounds like we're all keeping sane by keeping active, which is
good
because I'm also baking a lot more, so we got to keep it on your journeys. I hope that if you want to join for another talk, would love to see you here again. We'll talk about some other things that are going on, and stay well, and keep